What's up, it's Silly City back with the 11th episode of Hawaii Behind the Records, and this week we're gonna talk about finding your equipment. So right now in Switzerland there are Fasnachtsferien, which compared to like Mardi Gras or something, and it's a rather big thing in Switzerland, and therefore we have like holidays, and that's also nice for me just to have some time to prepare some content, pre-produce the filler episodes and prepare the new format for the Hawaii Behind the Records. This week I'm gonna talk about another important thing for my creative workflow, and that's my equipment that I use and the different devices that I have. Over the time I have accumulated quite some devices because I think every device that I got I still use it, and I'm not gonna go into detail of every device that I have because that would take too much time, but I'm just gonna quickly list everything that I have, and like most of the time you will see it in a jam or something. So the first device that I got was an e-piano when I was little and playing the piano. Then a little bit later I got a HWY MPK Mini just to have like a MIDI keyboard, but I really didn't use it for a while, and like 5-6 years later I got like an Ableton Push because I saw a masterclass from Timberland and tried to use it like that. Then I discovered like the Arturia Micro Freak, which is like also a nice synthesizer that you probably see in this week's jam. I also got like the DJS 1000, which is like also a music production device that can also be used with like the DJ gear, and also the whole DJ gear, like all the controllers and mixers and CDJs are also kind of equipment that I use. Some of my favorite devices are like the MPCs from HWY, the MPC1 and the MPC Keys 61 that I have. They are really nice because they have a DAW on the device, and that's really nice for the workflow that I like. The latest additions were like the Electron Syntact, which is for me just like a nice drum machine and also like a nice device to just see how sounds are created. Another nice addition was the bass, which I started playing in about November or something like that, and also added a whole other perspective to the whole music production. And the latest thing that I got or like landed from Adrian is like an analog synthesizer, which is the Moog Labyrinth, and I think you're also gonna see it in this week's jam. Okay, so let's just dive into the first point, and the first point is that you don't really need any equipment. Like every DAW, DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, has like everything you need for modern day music production. And those DAWs are, for example, Ableton, FL Studio, or like Logic Pro. Like these programs, they are like just awesome. They have basically everything that you see in a big music production studio, and like you can also use it as a keyboard. You can play like the keys on the onboard keyboard. You can use a lot of like plugins or samples that are already there within like the workstation. You can also use those programs just to like structure the track, put on some EQ and mix and everything you just need to do to produce a track. Another easy way to not really get devices and just play around in like the workstation is if you work with samples. Like a lot of those workstations already have in-house samples or plugins that you can use just to play around, and there are like millions of like platforms like Splice that you can just get some samples, plugins or whatsoever. I think using samples is a nice thing just to get started, to play around with arrangement, EQing and everything, but I personally think at some point it's also nice if you get some like original samples. That's just like samples that you like use your own voice, or like just sample something you're like watching on TV and like distorting it a little bit, or like sampling how you play a certain device. I think it's also cool if you are able to like just put something unique or something you have created into it, and not just use samples from other people's and like kind of arrange it. I mean, another thing that's also like a kind of gray zone with samples right now is the whole AI samples and also AI stemming. Like I think for like remixing tracks or like sampling stuff, like AI with stems is amazing. You can just get a certain drum loop or just the vocals and get really creative. And also like with AI you can create drum loops or like vocals. So I think there is a lot of like gray zone and playing ground in the whole like AI sampling. and I think it's a good creative tool, but I think what's most important is that you actually do some creative work and not just take everything the AI gives you or let an AI do the whole track. I think an important thing for me in music is that like a person is doing something or like playing something, or there's like a human touch to it. In the second part, we're going to talk a little bit more about like, okay, if you want to use some equipment, what equipment makes sense. For me, it was like, okay, those DAWs were chill and nice, but I didn't really understand it. Like I just wanted to do some simple basic beat loop something, or just to jam a little bit, and like I didn't really understand how I could use the DAW to do so. So I think the most essential part about equipment is that you find equipment that like inspires you or gives you a certain urge to use it, to play it. I think a lot of people like tend to look at the features and all the specs that the device has and try to max it out, but then again, you don't need every feature. You won't be able to use every feature that exists there. Like it's like if you try to understand every function in Excel and then also try to use every function, and it's like, no, it's not so important. You need to know what are the specs that are important for you, or what are like functions or like certain things that you need, and like just take something that looks nice and inspires you. My first real production device that inspired me was like the DJS-1000, because like I was back then way more about DJing, and like I thought was really nice was Danny Avila and this whole like main stage techno vibe, and then he also added the DJS to just have like nicer build-ups or like to layer stuff a little bit. And I thought, okay, that's really nice. That adds something to the whole DJing journey and experience. That's something I want to add. And then I just like thought, okay, let's just get it and play around a little bit. Another inspiration for a device that I got was like a Fred again for the MPC-1. Like I thought, okay, it's really nice what he's doing. This is something that looks fun or like, I don't know, challenging. And then I thought, okay, let's just see what kind of devices he has. And like he used the MPC in a way that I like used the DJS, or like I thought you could use the DJS-1000. And then I was like, okay, let's just get it and see what this is all about. Because I also saw a lot of other people using like the MPCs, like not only the MPC-1, but like certain different devices. And I thought like, okay, there has to be something about that. So let's figure it out. Another device that like I bought because of the inspiration was the Electron Syntact, because I wanted to produce like techno a little bit live, and I didn't know what device to use. And then I asked Adrian, the friend from Ash. He's doing a lot of like live techno production, and he recommended me this device. And he said it's like a good thing if you don't want to get too much into those analog racks and everything, and just want to like have something a little bit more modern, and it really has some nice sounds. And then I was like, okay, let's get it. So yeah, one thing could be like get a device because of inspiration of the people that use it, or just to get inspiration in a certain area. But I think one of the most important things is like that you choose something that is just like also looks nice. Like I don't know, if I look at my bass, I just like get an urge to play it. It looks really nice and clean, and then it's just like, yeah, it's a perfect device for that. So like I already mentioned a little bit, like don't worry too much about the features. Like each device that I have has so many features. If you want to understand everything, it's like really difficult, and then even if you would understand everything, you probably don't like or use everything that there is. Like there are certain programs or sounds that I'm just like, okay, I don't really like them, or they are not my sonic that I'm looking for. With time you will recognize, okay, those are the features that I like most, that I use most, and like just get an understanding of it, and you will always like find out new effects or like new things that you can try out. And it's also like a nice thing if you learn something on a certain device, most of the time it's also applicable to another device. So yeah, the last point in this part is like, yeah, start small and keep it simple. So like I said, I started with the MPK Mini first, and that's just like an easy MIDI keyboard. It was affordable, and just like to see, okay, how does this work with a laptop and playing on a MIDI keyboard. When I already had the DJ gear, the HWY-1000 was also like a nice addition. It's like rather expensive, but it was like a small addition to the whole DJing thing. And also the nice thing about the HWY-1000 is that it links with the DJ Pro Link with the CDJs, and it also has a MIDI output which lets you connect to the other devices. And another example of like starting small is like the bass. Like there are a lot of different basses and different ranges. Like there would also be a cheaper range for only like $200-300. Like my bass was about like $600 or something like that. So it was like a mid-range investment. But like comparing it with other basses that cost like $2,000-3,000, it's like, okay, it's still a rather small investment. And like I knew I would want to play it and use it, so I rather take something that's also sounds a little bit nice. And like I mentioned in the beginning of this part, like one of the most important things is that it just looks nice, and like I really like to look at my bass and play with it. It's like really a good thing, a nice investment, and compared with the other devices that I have for music production, like $500-600 is not that much money. So in the last part I want to go into a little bit what kind of specifics are most important for me and what I look for in the devices. And the most important thing for me is that most devices are modular with each other and compatible. So I can use one device and like sync it with another one. And another important thing in that is that the devices supplement each other and like they build upon each other. So I think the first thing that I used for like syncing was actually like with CDJs, like the DJ Pro Link. Like I knew that works with like Ethernet cables. I also knew that Ableton, you can use Ableton Link to like sync between laptops and stuff like that. But one of the biggest revelations in the whole music production is when you like start to understand how MIDI works. Then also with the HWY-1000 I had the ability to like sync with DJ Pro Link devices and still be able to like put the MIDI out to use other devices in sync with like the DJ equipment. One important thing in this part is like, okay, it's cool to use like Ableton Link and DJ Pro Link, but in the end of the day, like MIDI is always king. Like with MIDI you can sync so many things. Another important thing for me when it comes to choosing devices is that like each device has its own sound, is its own module or its own machine. So I have some devices that are more like synthesizers or like keyboards or sounds that I can sample in, and I have like other devices that are like whole digital audio workstations on their own. It's not only that, it's also that the devices in themselves like supplement each other. Like the Electron Syntakt is a nice drum machine just to get some drums ready. Like the MPC One I often also use as a drum machine or just as a sampler. The MPC Key 61 is like my go-to device if I just wanna lay down some keys and just like play around a little bit. And also like the bass was just like a whole other addition to just jam along and get some nice bass lines. And I then also found ways to just like record what I'm playing with the bass into my DAW that I'm using. So the last thing that's also part of that, or like how I did it, is that like the things build upon each other. So for me, like everything is like a little bit part of a band, you know, like the drum machine is the drummer. Then like with the Key 61 I can just get some keys in and like also do the arrangement for that. With the Ableton Push and also whole Ableton, you can use like a whole music studio, and then like I can see what do I need in this music studio. Do I need like this certain sonic? Then it's like, okay, maybe like the Micro Freak can provide me with the sonic, or maybe like another device that I have. But the idea is always to like see what sonics do I like, what sonics do I have, and how can I build upon this. So like if I use another device, will it add something unique? Like my latest addition, the analog device, the Moog Labyrinth, which you see in the jam today, like I didn't really know how to use it. I still don't know yet, but it's another nice way to get into the whole like music production. See, okay, how is it done like that? How can I just simply play around to change some sonics? And the idea is with understanding this synthesizer to also understand like the modules in the MPC all the instruments and devices there a little bit more to know, okay, which effects adjusts what. And if you get the new devices, just make sure that they're compatible with each other. Like I already mentioned, like with MIDI, most things are compatible, but just make sure that you can also use it in the way that you want, like for production or live production. There are different features that you need. In the end, the goal of this whole thing is to like just get devices that define your unique sonic or like just your unique sound, and also like have things to like be able to explore new sonics and new sounds. Alright, as always, I'm gonna do a quick TLDR and sum everything up. Basically, you don't really need equipment nowadays. Like if you have like a laptop or something and can get access to a DAW, you have everything that you need for modern day music production. If you don't already have a laptop or like a DAW, like it could also make sense to just get like an MPC or something that has a DAW on the whole device, especially if you already know you're more like a hands-on person and don't want to just be in front of a laptop screen all day. The second point was a lot about what devices to choose, and the most important part is really like choose devices that inspire you, that you really like give you an urge to play, that you also find beautiful and yeah, just nice to use. The last part and most important part is to make sure that if you get new devices or if you choose the devices, that they're compatible with each other and they build upon each other, so like they add value with the other device to it, and you can start using them together or like just to supplement each other. I think the most important point in using devices and equipment is just like to have a way to find your unique sonic and a workflow that fits to you. Like it's always nice to get inspiration and see how other people do things, but I think in the end, like the combination of all those inspirations are the things that make you unique, especially if you take your time to like get to know the devices and like play around in a way that like other people haven't done it, or like combine things in a way that hasn't been done before. Alright, that's it for this week. Next week I'm gonna talk a little bit more about pivoting, which is a concept that I came across in my business studies, but it's also something that you can use for like creative concepts. And until then, stay healthy, have a nice week, and see you. Bye!